What's up, everyone? JjLee here, finally back with the JjLee Hockey Show. After 2 long months, finally back. It's great to be back. And today's episode is going to be a little different since I've not done the show for 2 months now. I'm going to just do kind of a catch-up day, because while a lot of the news that happened over the past 8 weeks is not like it, a lot of it is old news now, but we've had so much big news, like so many major trades happen that I just don't want to not talk about it. So I'm going to do a little bit of a catch-up day. Next week we'll be back to usual, just doing the recent news. But today I just wanted to give my thoughts on some of the trades we've seen over the past 2 months. First off, shortly after I did my last show, we saw Cam Fowler get traded to the St. Louis Blues from the Ducks on December 14th. The trade details were obviously the Blues acquired Cam Fowler along with a 2027 fourth-round pick, and the Anaheim Ducks acquired Jeremy Baya. I can't pronounce the name. He's never played in the NHL before, mostly just the minors like the AHL and ECHL. And the Ducks also acquired a 2027 second-round pick. Fowler played 15 seasons with the Ducks, 991 games played for them, 96 goals, 361 assists for 457 points. So for a defenseman, those are pretty good numbers during his career with the Ducks. But this season, I mean, he kind of fell off in Anaheim. His first 17 games with Anaheim, he had 0 goals, 4 assists for 4 points, and also wasn't too great defensively, at least from what I saw. Although in St. Louis, though, he went to St. Louis, and in his past 26 games in St. Louis, he's had 6 goals, 8 assists, 14 points. So my guess is that it's one of those situations where he's not like the star defenseman he used to be, but he can still be a solid top 4 guy. It depends. St. Louis doesn't really have a lot of guys either on defense. Their defense is pretty weak, but Anaheim, just the point being that Anaheim is they've got a bright future, but they're still a few years away from winning. They're still a pretty bad team now. And clearly I want to say Fowler's 33 years old. It could be wrong, but he's bottom line, he's in his 30s now. So point being that by the time Anaheim is truly ready to win again, not just competing for a playoff spot, but then back to contending, he'll be at least in his mid-30s. He's clearly not going to be in their long-term plan. So they trade him. They get a second-round pick for him, which for what we thought, that's kind of what we thought he was going to. They weren't going to get a first-round pick for him by this point, but I think this is a good move for Anaheim. Clearly, maybe he can get his career back on track in St. Louis, which it looks like he might be able to, but at least be a solid defenseman. I'm not saying he's going to be a top pairing guy again, but just clearly by this point, he's not what he used to be, and he's not going to be in Anaheim's long-term plans with them still in a rebuild. Moving on, December 18th, we finally saw Kaapo Kakko traded to Seattle. In exchange, the Rangers acquired defenseman Will Borgen, a 2025 third-round pick, and a 2025 sixth-round pick. Kakko obviously was second overall in 2019, has been pretty disappointing for a second overall pick. 6 seasons in New York, 354 games played, 66 goals, 82 assists for 148 points. He did have times where he looked like he was getting better, but still that was looking like a second liner and stuff. He never has shown that he's going to live up to the second overall hype. And by this point, his first 30 games in New York this year, he had 4 goals, 10 assists for 14 points, and then basically third middle 6 numbers. Last 24 games with Seattle, he's had 5 goals, 12 assists for 17 points. So he's picked up a little bit, but the point is that I think he can still be a solid middle 6 forward, maybe make it to a second liner. But by this point, he's in his 6th season in the NHL. I don't think he's going to be the star that he was supposed to be. I don't think he's going to be living up to the second overall hype. It's just crazy that he was debated with Jack Hughes over who should go first, and Ranger fans were full and excited because that Jack Hughes went first because they thought Kakko was better. So that's a huge oof for Ranger fans to look back at. But yeah, Kakko just hasn't lived up to the hype. He never did in St. Louis. In New York, and we'll see what he does in Seattle. It looks like it looks like he will be better in Seattle, but I don't think he's going to be the superstar he was supposed to be at this point. As for who the Rangers got in exchange to get Will Borgen, he's been a solid depth defenseman for them. However, they then signed him to a 5-year deal, $4.1 million a year. I don't think that's a good move. You don't give a third pair guy that much term and money. I think the money is a little steep. I think maybe if he went like 2 years, I could see that, but 5 years, $4.1 million for a depth defenseman, it's just it usually does not go well. So we'll see if Borgen's any different. But as of now, I just don't see the logic behind signing him to that big contract. Next up, it was also reported on February 18th that by Emily Kaplan that that we obviously saw the Rangers were a mess at the time, and it was and people are questioning, could it be Peter Laviolette? Is he not doing a good job being coach? But it was reported that the relationship between him and the players was fine, that the players were having an issue with Chris Drury, the general manager, and it was like the report was that the players phone had a meeting amongst themselves and said they wanted him to quote change or be gone. I'm pretty sure, and it's like. The Rangers, it just sounds like a huge mess in the locker room for them because, this kind of is what happens when players try to dictate what's going to happen. Because my thing is, you're the one who signed with the team, and you're the one your contract will end eventually. If you don't like it there, then don't resign there. But the players are not the ones in charge of this, yeah, it's just when we've seen that type of stuff happen before, and it did not go well for the team. These are the types of things that send the team to a rebuild or just to completely fall apart from inside. So I think the Rangers are going to have to trade someone from the core, at least one person. They might have to blow it up. I'm not sure they necessarily are going to have to tear it down, but something's got to change. Otherwise, the core could become toxic because the Rangers were 12-4-1 to start the season. Keep in mind, they won the President's Trophy last year and made it to the conference finals. But then they went on a 5-game losing streak and went 3-11-0 in their next 14 games and were 15-15-1 at the time this news was released. Again, they started off 12-4-1, and eventually, by the time this news was released on December 18th, they were 15-15-1. They've since gone. They've since gone a little better. They've gone 12-9-3 and are since then and are now 27-24-4 with 58 points in the season, with 5th in the Metro. But I still just don't have faith in this team to do anything. To go anywhere. They might make it into a wildcard spot, but I don't see them going anywhere. I have to be careful because my Caps can end up playing them. But just looking at it, you could have teams that aren't doing well, on the ice. Maybe they'll get better, but it sounds like there's so many issues going on in this locker room right now that they're going to have to change something up. Otherwise, the entire team's going to become toxic, and they're going to have to, and they'll have no other choice than to completely tear the core up. But we've seen things like Kreider was a healthy scratch a time or two. He's been a long-time veteran and star for the Rangers, but he's not been good this year. Or for his standards, he's not been good this year. Zibanejad's not what he used to be. Trocheck has 37 points in 55 games this year. Even Igor, who's usually the reliable guy for the team, in that he's been very inconsistent. So he started off really hot, then he went on a really cold streak. Now he's doing good again, but even he's been consistent. And usually for the Rangers, it's been when no one else shows up, Igor does. But even he's had kind of a roller coaster year. So Rangers, once again, they have gotten better since this news was released almost 2 months ago. But looking at it from a neutral standpoint, because obviously I'm a Caps fan, I love seeing the Rangers fall off, but looking at it from a neutral standpoint, there's just so many concerns I have about this team, and I just don't have any faith in them to go far in the playoffs I'm not even sure they're going to make the playoffs at this point because Detroit's doing good. We talked about the wild card race Detroit's doing good. Ottawa's doing good. I think Washington, Carolina are the top two in the Metro. Are going to be the top two in the Metro. New Jersey's gone through a kind of a rough time recently, but I still think they're going to be safe from like the Rangers. I think they're going to be at third spot. So the Rangers for the wildcard spot are competing with Ottawa and Detroit, who've been doing good recently. So I'm not too confident that they're going to be able to make it, because you've also got other teams like Boston in the mix, and Columbus. Even though they've kind of fallen off again, but they've shown this year they've still got way overachieved this year, and it would not be a shock if they figured out a way against the playoffs based on what they've already done. So yeah, not looking good for the Rangers right now. Speaking of the wild card race, I mentioned the Red Wings. On December 26th, the day after Christmas, the Red Wings fired head coach Derek Lalonde and hired Todd McLellan as their new head coach. Under Lalonde this season, they went 13, 17, and 4. They were doing terribly. They were one of the worst in the division. And then under McLellan so far, since he got there, they've been 15, 5, and 1. They're absolutely rolling right now. I kept saying before the season that they weren't doing well, that they weren't going to do well, that they were overrated. And at first I was right. So many Red Wings fans who gave me a hard time before the season were apologizing to me and everything, saying, yeah, you were right about the Red Wings, but now they fired the coach. And unfortunately, now I'm hearing it from them like, oh, now we're back. So we'll see what happens. We do see a lot of teams going a heater like this, but then they do kind of dip afterwards. It's not sustainable. I'm not, but by this point, the Red Wings have been doing this. This has been 21 games, so I do think maybe they really are legit. But I'm also just looking at the wild card race. I think the Senators are going to make it, or the Senators I believe, are actually in the third Atlantic spot right now. So Lightning would be in the first wild card spot, but even still, sorry, I'm actually just going to check the standings to make sure I'm right about this. So Tampa's in the third Atlantic spot, but Ottawa's in the first wildcard spot, so I was right the first time. Detroit's in the second wildcard spot with 61 points. Then you got Columbus with 60 points, and Boston with 60 points, and Rangers with 58 points. However, Detroit has one game in hand on Columbus, 2 on Boston, and same number of games as Rangers. So I'm honestly, between those 4 teams, I'm probably favoring the Red Wings to make the playoffs. I already said it doesn't look good for the Rangers. Bruins just aren't convincing me they can do anything, that they're going to make the playoffs. They just don't seem like the same team they were the past few years. Pasternak's doing good. He looks like himself again after a slow start, but no one else is really showing that. Swayman's having a rough year, so I'm kind of even my Bruins. Even I have multiple friends who are Bruins fans, and even they've been telling me they're giving hope on the Bruins. So I just don't really see the Bruins doing anything. And then Columbus, once again, surprising everyone. So I'd probably favor them over the Bruins and the Rangers, just because they are already like so far exceeding expectations. But I still think Detroit is going to make it over them, especially without Marchenko, who I'm going to try to get to later in the show if I have time. But yeah, Detroit's looking good. I don't like it because of like the picks I made before the season. But if they make it, then I mean, it is kind of hard to be upset about it. Like looking at it as the fact that the Red Wings have been bad for several years now. Had a lot of success in the past, but like their last cup was in 2008. So kids would need to be, or people would need to. They wouldn't even be kids anymore. They need to be 20, at least in their early 20s to remember it. Like I was only like 3 years old at the time. So yeah, they've been they've had as much success as they've had in the past. They've been bad recently for several years. So I guess you kind of have to be happy for Red Wings fans, especially younger Red Wings fans who didn't get to witness the historic success in the past, if they make the playoffs this year. Moving on. Yep. So I had to go through my notes again to find my spot. The Colorado Avalanche re-signed Mackenzie Blackwood on December 28th to a 5-year deal worth $5.25 million a year. I think this is a great move for Colorado. Obviously, they got him in a trade for Alexander Georgiev from San Jose. After being shaky the past 2 seasons, this season, Blackwood has a .909 save percentage and a 3.0 goals against average. But then since joining Colorado, he has a .922 save percentage and a 2.13 goals against average. So he's been really good for them this year. Colorado's been struggling to find a goalie. They had Grubauer 2021, who had a great year at the time, but we're going to get to him in a little bit too. But then he left, and then they got Kemper the next year, won the cup, but they couldn't re-sign him. So they've had Georgiev as their goalie the past 2 years, and it feels like it's been forever since they had a good goalie because Georgiev was not good. Georgiev did make the All-Star game in 2023, but I said at the time he was overrated, that he was just looking good because of his defense or because he was on a good team. But yeah, I never had faith in Georgiev. So Colorado's been lacking a goalie the past couple of years. It looks like they finally found one. So they lock him up for 5 years. Obviously, there's always a risk, especially with these goalies, how they can fall off. But it's so hard to get a good goalie that my thing is, especially with Colorado being in win now mode right now, I'd say just lock up your goalie for 5 years. When you have a good goalie, lock him up. And they did just that, doing good this year for them. So we'll see where it takes them. But I do like this deal for Colorado a lot. I'm just gonna get a drink real quick. Next, multiple sources have reported that Jonathan Toews is looking to try and return to the NHL. Obviously, Toews hasn't played since April 2023. Obviously, he's like one of those biggest stars of the 2010s era, Blackhawks legend, but he's not played since April 2023. Had 15 goals, 16 assists, and 31 points in 53 games in his final season. So he'd fallen off a lot. He's had some health issues also, unfortunately. I'm kind of doubtful that he's going to return. Just when you're already that age and you've fallen off a lot, and then you don't play for almost 2 years, then it's really hard to get back. Or by the time he comes back, it'll have been over 2 years. So it's just really hard to come back from that. But I do think it would be amazing if he did, because it would just be a great story, great for the game. Obviously, I've heard that he's a very nice guy. He's shown he's a great leader. So once again, while I don't think he'll come back, or while I don't think he'll be able to come back, I think I would love to see it happen. I think it would be amazing, but we'll have to wait and see. I've seen teams like the Jets show interest in him, so it'll be interesting to see not only if he'll come back, but where he'll end up if he does come back, because I don't think he'll be back in Chicago. Chicago's moving in a different direction. They don't seem like they're interested in bringing him back. Next, we had the World Juniors in January. Concluded January 5th. USA won gold, beating Finland in overtime for the gold medal with Predators prospect and Boston College forward Teddy Stiga. Stiga scoring the overtime winner. It was such a thrilling game too. Like, Finland looked better at times, but then USA came back, and I still remember watching. I got my reaction to USA winning. I just jumped up because I was excited. But USA is back to back World Junior champions. I think it's looking like next year Canada might be the winner, because they have a lot of good players coming up if they pick their team right, because this year they did some weird way instead of going like just best players. So they just had so many weaknesses. Like, not only were they not as good as they could have been on the ice, but they just seemed to have so many like issues, like some of them were undisciplined and everything. So I definitely think they need to choose their team better. But if they go with best players available next year, then they should definitely win. But for now, USA is back-to-back World Junior Gold champions. So you love to see it in America. Lost my notes again. All right. Czechia, then also beat Sweden in the bronze medal game, 3-2 in a shootout, and it went an insane 14 rounds. I thought it was never going to end. Like, it just seemed like the goalies were so good. I thought it was just going to keep going. And then when one team would finally score, you thought that was going to be the winner. The other team would score too and tie it up again. So it was an amazing shootout. Usually shootouts are criticized, but I thought this one was really had you on the edge of your seat. And then eventually Edward Saleh for the Kraken prospect finally closed it out in the 14th round. It was an amazing World Juniors as always. Very exciting, very thrilling, and yeah. But I love to see USA win back to back. Next we have on January 8th the 2026 Winter Classic and Stadium Series matchups were released. Or speaking of which, something I forgot to talk about in here so far, we had the Winter Classic on New Year's Eve, which, first of all, I don't understand why they do. Like, 2 years ago, they had it on January 2nd, and then this year they had New Year's Eve. Like, why can't we just go back to having it on New Year's Day? That's a tradition. It just feels like it's more proper to do it New Year's Day. But I can't even remember the score because it was just St. Louis blew out Chicago. It was not a good matchup to start. I think they just wanted to put Chicago in because of Bedard, but clearly they're one of the worst teams to have in the Winter Classic right now. St. Louis really isn't a good team either. They're very mid, but they blew out Chicago. This was probably one of the worst Winter Classic matchups we've had. These two have met before in 2017, and they were much more relevant teams back then, but now both of them are mid or bad. So I said from the start this was not a good matchup, and it did pretty poorly. Like I said, the Blues blew out the Blackhawks and stuff. Like, I don't even remember the score because it was not a very entertaining Winter Classic. I believe they said it had the worst views rating for any in history from Winter Classic. So yeah, but next year we'll see how it does. It's going to be in Florida, hosted by the Florida Panthers. They're hosting the Rangers, and it'll be at Lone Depot Park in Miami, which is home to the Miami Marlins of the MLB. I think it's great they're doing it in Florida because obviously a big thing has been trying to spread hockey to get it to grow in the South, and with teams like the Lightning and Panthers doing well in Florida, it's definitely started to grow. So I think doing this is great for the game. My only concern is the Rangers. And obviously that's a matchup that happened in the playoffs last year. So you have the history there, but the Rangers just seem to have a very murky future. So I'm not sure, like when we talk about having one kind of like the Blues and Blackhawks, even though the Blues aren't a good team, they're so much better than the Blackhawks. It's kind of hard to have a good game when one team is much worse, it's much better than the other. And the Rangers could be good next year, but they also might not be. So I'm just a little iffy on that. I would prefer to see, I'm trying to think who I would have sent instead of the Rangers. Like, maybe really any team that's like doing good. Maybe Toronto. Toronto's not been in the Winter Classic yet. Never mind, they have. They went to in 2014, but I just don't think there's much of a Winter Classic team because so many of the original 6 teams have had too many Winter Classics. Toronto's not one of them, so I kind of forget that they've been to the Winter Classic. They have at least been to one Winter Classic because you're used to the Red Wings and the Blackhawks and the Bruins having multiple Winter Classics. But Toronto's not been to Winter Classic since 2014, I'm pretty sure. When they were against the Red Wings. So I think a Toronto Florida matchup would have been much better than the Rangers Panthers. I mean, you still have an original 6 team there, but I think Toronto is going to be more relevant next year than the Rangers. Of course, I'm one of the people who, as a Caps fan especially, who would love to see another Caps Penguins Winter Classic while we still have Ovi and Sid. I've been saying the past few years that needs to happen. Unfortunately, I'm not sure it's going to, but, as a neutral fan of hockey though, I think I'm not going to complain because we said how this year's was too bland and everything, how it's just a recycled matchup. Chicago's been over and over again and stuff. And it just wasn't an exciting matchup. So we've been complaining about how they need to give us something new. They're giving us something new here. So I'm not going to complain too much there. We also got that day the Stadium Series matchup for next year. and it's the Lightning versus the Bruins in Tampa Bay, Raymond James Stadium, which is home to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So 2 outdoor games in Florida next year. I think that's amazing for the game to grow down there. Both teams have had success recently. Both have won cups, so I think bringing an outdoor game there is amazing. But I just, once again, the Florida teams being in it are good, but the matchup are both of the visiting opponents are teams that have been good the past 2 years, but next year are a little questionable. Like, it's hard to tell what the Bruins are going to be like next year. So I would have sent a team like the Hurricanes or who else have the Lightning had a bit of a history with recently. I mean, the Lightning and Bruins are rivals, but I just think they could have chosen the opponents better, make it a more interesting matchup. I would have sent maybe the Hurricanes, maybe even the Caps. Like, I'm trying to avoid saying that just because I'm a Caps fan and I don't want to seem biased, but I really would have sent the Caps over the Bruins, given that they do look like they're going to be a better team next year. Although then again, the Caps went in 2023 and so did the Hurricanes. So I guess, maybe one of those matchups is good, but I would not have sent both the Bruins and Rangers to an outdoor game next year. Maybe you just send one or the other, because the Rangers have had recent history in the playoffs with both the Panthers and the Lightning. So maybe you send the Rangers, but choose a different opponent for, maybe you send the Rangers to one of them and send Toronto, like I said, to another. But yeah, I once again, I like it in Florida, but I'm a little questionable on the, unsure about the opponents. Next, January 18th, we saw the, Connor McDavid and Tyler Myers both suspended for the game was they were suspended a few days later, but the game was on January 18th. Both 3 games were cross-checks to the head. First, Tyler Myers cross-checked Evan Bouchard to the head, which was unnecessary, but then McDavid did an unnecessary cross-check on Connor Garland, and people were saying he was mad about the cross-check to Bouchard, but the thing is, he didn't even go after Myers in that case. He went after a different player on the Canucks who didn't do anything. So I think, look, I like McDavid, but I think when he does do stuff, I'm not saying he's a dirty player, but he has had a few questionable things. And when it does happen, he kind of gets away with it. People kind of defend him because he's McDavid, but I think that they do need to stop looking at who it is, and a cross-check to the head's a cross-check to the head. So I think this was a fair suspension, 3 games for McDavid. And then Myers, of course, 2, but no one was going to defend Myers, obviously, because he's not McDavid. All right, so back now. Next, I'm going to talk about one of the biggest things we've had in the past, and overall in the season, the Mikko Rantanen Martin Necas trade. So on January 25th, the Hurricanes acquired Mikko Rantanen and Taylor Hall and Niels Juntorp, I've never heard of him before now. He's mostly been the, I don't even think he's played in the AHL or ECHL. I think he's played in leagues overseas, but, the biggest pieces, not trying to disrespect him, but the biggest pieces here are Rantanen and Hall. The Avalanche acquired Martin Necas, Jack Drury, a 2025 second-round pick, and a 2026 fourth-round pick. And the Blackhawks acquired a 2025 third-round pick. They retained, I'm pretty sure, 50% of Rantanen's salary. So they traded Hall to Carolina, as well as retained 50% of Rantanen's salary for Colorado. For Carolina. Basically, they helped retain more of the salary because he does get paid a lot of money. It's the best way I could say it. But yeah, this season, Rantanen's obviously been one of the best winners in the league the past 2 years. This season, in 55 games played, has 26 goals and 40 assists for 66 points. And since the trade has been kind of not looked like himself, really has had just 2 points in 6 games, 1 goal and 1 assist, which I think people are jumping on him too soon. I think he will pick it up. It's just sometimes players take a little while to adjust to a new team, but I think he will get better. Hall also has not looked good has not really done anything since he got there. Has 25 points in 52 games on the season, but just 1 point in 6 games since the trade. He's someone I'd be a little more concerned about, because he has the past few years not looked like the player he once was. So I think Ranson will eventually find his game in Carolina, but I am a little questionable on Hall. Meanwhile, in Colorado, Natchez this season, 57 games played, 20 goals, 44 assists, or 64 points. He's had an amazing career year. And since the trade has 4 goals, 5 assists for 9 points in 8 games. So he's been amazing for Colorado. I think it is worth noting though that Branson has more of the track record. Like Natchez, that he's always been good, but this has been a career year for him. I'm not sure he's going to repeat the numbers he's putting up this year. But either way, still an amazing guy for Colorado. He's not Ranson though, but I'll get to that in a minute. And then since the trade for Drury, Drury has 11 points in 47 games on the season since the trade, 2 goals in 8 games. So he's mostly just a bottom sixer, though, like a solid third or fourth liner. But it was the details as to why this all happened, because it was kind of out of nowhere. Ranson, so Pierre LeBrun reported that Ranson apparently wanted $14 million a year, which at first I thought was absolutely outrageous when you think about it. So Draisaitl got $14 million in 2024. Matthews got $13.25 million in 2023. So he's definitely not at their level. But then you can look at guys like Nylander got $11.5 million in 2023. Dahlin, defenseman, but we do usually see forwards get paid more than defensemen. Dahlin got $11 million in 2023. So when you look at those bottom two guys, Nylander and Dahlin, it's not, I think $14 million is still a little high, but it's not too outrageous to think of him wanting like 12 to 13 million. But then with the cap going up, then he could probably ask for more, because the cap is supposed to go up a decent amount over the next few years. I kind of defended Colorado saying that they didn't think they're going to be able to re-sign him, which at the time they probably didn't think they could re-sign him. So they were trying to, trade him and use his money to become a deeper team, because ever since they won the Stanley Cup, they lost a few guys after that. They've been a good team, but they've not been quite as deep as they were in 2022. So maybe they're trying to get that kind of depth back. But now that the cap's going, now we know how much the cap is going to go up, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's going to go up quite a bit. So they probably could have re-signed him, which obviously stings for them, but Natchez will still be good for them. I think they're just kind of going for a little different look now. Maybe trying to make the team a little deeper, like I said. And now they have a goalie too, which they've been needing. So I think they'll be fine, but losing Ranson definitely, or not having Ranson anymore definitely is tough for them. As for Carolina, we'll see what happens. Of course, we thought Ranson was going to be as huge. Like everyone's like, oh my gosh, Carolina's going to be looking like insane now. However, now there's reports that Ranson could be traded again if trying to think what the source was. I should have wrote it down, but actually multiple sources though have reported that Ranson might be traded again if he's not signed by a deadline. So Carolina also trying not to lose him for nothing, but it'll be quite interesting if he got traded again, because he's such a great player. So you don't usually think of guys like that getting traded twice before the deadline in that type of situation. But we'll see if he signs or not before the deadline. I kind of see where Colorado was coming from for this, but I don't. But now that the cap's going up, they probably could have re-signed him. But we'll see what kind of look they go for next year with new guys like Natchez and who else they might be able to sign. After that, we saw Philip Grubauer waived on January 28th, which he's had a horrible year. He has 2 years left on a 6-year deal, $5.9 million a year. This season has a horrible 866 save percentage and 3.83 goals against average. His best save percentage in 4 years with the Kraken was last year with an 899. So he's not even had an above 900 save percentage since he's been in Seattle. And that signing is just looking like it's one of the worst signings in recent history as a whole. And it's unfortunate because I like Grubauer. I was great to see him do well in Colorado, but so it's unfortunate that this is what's happened. But it's really looking like now that the team he had in front of him in Colorado was a big part of it, and he was a decent goalie, but that was probably his peak. So now that now that was his peak. That was like now 4 years ago, and he's not been on a good team since then. And it's really showing for him. Now he's been sent down, and it is unfortunate for him though. He's getting his money, but it's got to be tough to have your career fall off like that. Moving on though, I'm running out of time. I think I got a few more topics here I'd like to talk about, but I'm not going to have time for all of them. I'm not. Oh yeah, I was going to do a cap session at the end, but I'm not going to have time for that full thing. So we did some big Caps news. Logan Thompson signed a 6-year extension with the Caps worth $5.85 million a year. A couple weeks ago, and I was so excited for that. He's been phenomenal for the Caps this year. This season for the Caps, he has a .921 save percentage and a 2.23 goals against average. He's been one of the best goalies in the league this year. He's been their best goalie since Braden Holtby. And it's great to see them have a reliable goalie again. I mean, hopefully he'll be reliable for the next few seasons. But they went through Sam Sonoff. Everyone thought he was going to be the future of the Caps. Didn't work out, and they also had Vanacek too. Everyone thought one of them was going to work out for the Caps, and neither of them did. So then they get Kemper. We thought he was the guy, but he was pretty disappointing. Lindgren came up out of nowhere last year, and we thought he just came out of nowhere. Everyone thought he was going to do good for them, continue doing good for them, but he's kind of gone back to being a backup this year. So hopefully Thompson's the guy, and he has more of a track record than like Lindgren did, and he's not as old as Kemper. So I do think that he will sustain this for at least the next few years. I'm very excited, especially the money at just $5.85 million a year. Like, we've seen goalies of his caliber get north of $8 million. So I think this is an amazing contract, and I can't wait to see him in Washington for the next 5 years to come. We had Ryan Hartman suspended 10 games the other day for roughing Tim Stützle. That was 100% valid. He full and drove Stützle's head into the ice. That was a clear intent to injure. He's done this type of stuff before. I am surprised just the way they handle suspensions. A lot of them were too soft in the past. So I am a little surprised that they actually gave him 10 games this time. But when I saw it, I was like, yeah, it was a little surprising just that they actually gave it to him, but it was deserved considering his history and the fact that this was just such a clear intent to injure. We saw the Canucks extend Marcus Pettersson on February 6th to a 6-year deal, $5.5 million a year. I am a little questionable on that because while he is a good defenseman, I'm not sure about 6 years because he is, I believe, I want to say he's in his late 20s now, so that is kind of risky, especially when you're paying him over $5 million. But then again, the cap's going to go up over the next few years, so it probably won't be as bad of a deal once it gets closer to the end. But I was a little surprised they signed him so quickly after the trade, because he's a good defenseman, but he's not a superstar to where you lock him up immediately. Like, usually you do wait a little bit, see what you have in him before you decide to just lock him up. But unfortunately, I think I'm out of time now. A few more topics. I'm not sure if I'm going to carry them over to next week's because I do want to get back to talk about recent news or relevant news. So I'll see if I want to talk about this stuff next week or not. But thank you for listening. Back with it was either way though. It was great to be back. Glad I got as much as I did. Thank you for listening to the show, and I'll see you next week.